Feliz Viernes, familias RevvED. I am Christy Moreno, Chief Advocacy Officer for Revolución Educativa, an education advocacy organization based in Kansas City, Missouri, but really extending our work across our state, across state lines, and really trying to project nationwide because we are here to elevate the voices of Latinos in our community, Latino leaders, parent families, students, influencers, activists. And I am very happy to be here with you today on this Fuerza Friday with someone that has been impacting the lives of Latinos in Kansas City for over 20 years. Welcome, Erika Andrade, Chief Program Officer at El Centro, and also one of our 2022 Impacto Changemaker awardees. Bienvenida, Erika.
Muchas gracias.
I'm very excited to have this conversation with you. Revved up episodes are meant to be casual, but also informative, motivational, and really to ignite the fire within us to take on action, to influence, impact, and better the lives of our community. And I know that Erika has been doing this for over 2 decades. She is most definitely a very well-respected, fierce Latina, really doing powerful work in our community. So Erika, please tell us a little bit about yourself, more in the personal tone of it, like who are you? How long have you been in Kansas City? How do you identify? What is your family's story?
Oh, thanks, Christy. Yeah, that's great. That's a great way to start. Usually we don't get to dive into the people that we see every day and find out a little bit more about them. So what a great opportunity. So I have been in Kansas City since I was 15 years old. I'm actually not an original dot, as some people would say, but I have lived and worked in Wyandotte County since I was 15 years old. So I feel like I am. This is where my heart is. Originally, I was born in a little town, San Juan, Texas, down in the way at the bottom tip. So I'm a Valley girl. A lot of people will know what that means if they're from the Rio Grande Valley. I'm a really proud daughter of a Latina, strong Latina woman that came up from Guanajuato, Mexico, into the border town of Texas. And that's kind of where we kind of had our start. Moved up to Kansas City, Kansas, the Kansas side, when I was 15, and I graduated from J.C. Harmon High School. And so I actually was first introduced to El Centro, which is where I work now. When I was in high school, I volunteered. And so I very vividly recall, I was telling the story to our CEO, Irene, the other day, and she just loved the story. I volunteered one day to work with the children at the academy. It was an after-school program they had, so this were a little bit older kids, not so young. And they were taking them to Starlight Theater, and we went to see Phantom of the Opera. And I will never forget it because that's the first time I'd ever been to the theater. I was like 17 years old at that point. And I was just like in love. I was in love with the theater. I was in love with working at a nonprofit. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Went off to college. I graduated from KU with my bachelor's in Latin American Studies. I thought I was going to be a professor. Honestly, that was my dream. From there, I was going to go get my master's in Chicano Studies at San Jose University in California. Unfortunately, like, a lot of Latinos, I wasn't prepared enough to understand the financial aspects of what that meant. My financial aid fell through at the last minute, and I kind of had to change literally my vision for myself. I applied at El Centro. I was hired back then. And so I got hired for a position I didn't even apply for. It was for working in their after-school tutoring program with students as teachers, but I just loved the work and I stayed. I've been here for 20 years. I've had the amazing experience of being able to kind of weave my way through the organization, through different departments, starting with working with students as teachers. Then I ran their adult education programming, so ESL, GED in Spanish, citizenship classes. I did all of that work for close to 10 years. And then I was super fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to start a new department for El Centro, which was our health navigation department, probably about close to 13 years ago now. And I worked under that kind of umbrella for a really long time. And 3 years ago, I went back to school. I got my master's at UMKC, my MBA, MPA, and then I became the chief program officer. And so it's been just a really wonderful experience to be able to have a lot of that background with working directly with community in so many aspects, education, with their children, with health access, and then now being able to support my programs and my staff to be able to continue that strong work with our community.
Wow. Wow, wow,
Very short, as
wow.
they say.
You know, when you were nominated to receive the award, there was just so much richness in the why you were the perfect person to receive this recognition. Um, and one of the quotes was, "She has tackled every challenge that comes her way and advocates for everyone around her to do the same." Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing with this is that in your every day, your every effort, every initiative, you always bring others along to learn together. Mm-hmm. And that is beautiful. A lot of times we see leaders who lead beautifully, but forget to teach others and to bring others along as they're learning as well. That is certainly not the case with you. You have empowered those that work with you and those that benefit from the work that you all are doing at El Centro. So thank you so much. Much recognized, much appreciated also to get a little bit more context as to who you are. And the work you're doing. At RevvED, and you touched a little bit on this, we focus on education advocacy and equitable access to that educational experience for Latino students. And we always ask our friends that come along and that interview with us and where we chat, I'm curious as to what your educational experience was like as a Latina. You know, K through 12, you've already touched a little bit about, you know, post-grad, you know, your university studies and things like that. But what was it like to be a Latina student?
Definitely. I mean, I think that's a wonderful story to tell for a lot of us Latinos growing up in the system, because it's so different. Everybody's got such an important and different story. Originally, I can think of a couple of stories just to kind of give you like an idea of my experience with education and where that kind of came from. So I grew up in a household in a border town in Texas, where my mom only spoke English, Spanish all of her life. So I was kind of the youngest child. I was very shy. So I spent all my time with my mom. So as my brother and sister were going off having adventures with my grandparent and, you know, things like that, I just wanted to be with my mom. So I didn't learn how to speak English probably until I was in second grade, I'm going to say. So I was already a little older of a child, even though I was going through an American school system. This was not an issue in kindergarten because my kindergarten teacher was Latina and we spoke Spanish in kindergarten. So that was fine. When I got into first grade, unfortunately, that was my first experience of having a non-Latina. I had a white teacher. And so obviously I retreated and I became very shy because I didn't understand what was happening in the classroom. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand her, but I didn't want to say anything because I was very shy. And it all kind of came to a head when my parents were brought in to the school because they were contemplating putting me into special ed, like moving me classrooms, because they thought that I had maybe a learning disability or something was going on because I was just not participating. And that's when my parents like, what do you mean? She talks all the time. And so that's when I had to kind of confess, I don't understand what she's saying to me. It was very devastating. I remember this moment very clearly in my life. And so it was then at that point where they're like, oh, that's the problem. So they had to put in an aide that spoke Spanish to kind of get me through that first year. And obviously, you know, I was kind of able to finally incorporate myself, but just things like that, you know, kind of really bring to front some of the issues that a lot of our students coming from this kind of like dual world where you have to kind of maneuver having that connection to your native language, but then also starting a school system, not wanting to lose the native language, but then having to incorporate yourself better. Coming up to Kansas City was completely different. You know, I went to Harmon, like I said. Unfortunately, I'll be really honest, you know, I totally understand how representation would have probably helped me a lot to have teachers that looked like me and came from the experiences like me. I didn't have any. Even at Harmon, I think I had one teacher that was Latina. She was our photography teacher. Other than that, I don't recall. And not having that preparation of understanding what higher education looked like, preparing, you know, the financial literacy, the FAFSA, things like that students need that support to be able to, like, I knew I wanted to go to college, you know, I thought I was smart, you know, I was dedicated. I graduated third in my class, and then you get to college and you realize you were not prepared. You know, you were not prepared academically, you were not prepared emotionally or with mentorship, but I was able to get through. I was able to, you know, I joined a Latina sorority, which really helped me kind of find like a home and a community, which really, I say, had a lot to do with me able to not drop out and actually finish and graduate. And then honestly, if I had gone straight into grad school, I might have not succeeded because I would have been maybe even too much at that point. But having that experience from going into the work field and you know, that professional development that comes with it, I think really helps to where I finally did go back for my master's. I was really prepared. It was great. It was an amazing experience, completely different from my undergrad, where I kind of just somehow made it through by the skin of my teeth, as they say it. And so it's been really interesting, but I see my experience is not unique. It's what a lot of our students go through.
Yes, and I am very grateful to you for bringing up the issue of representation, right? Can you expand just a little bit more as a student, right?
Yeah.
As a student, how did you feel that the lack of representation, and then when you have representation in your classroom, how did that feel?
Yes.
Like when you didn't feel represented, how did that feel? And the minute you felt like you were in the company of people like you, whether they were leading you or educators or mentors, how did that shape your identity?
Yes, I really, like I said, like I really didn't feel like I had that representation when I was in high school. I mean, in elementary and middle school in Texas, I did because all my teachers were Latinos. But it's almost like a different world down there because everybody's literally like me. Everybody was Latino like me. So you don't even have to worry about being Latino because everybody is. But coming here was different because now there's a lot more diversity, which I loved. That's great to be exposed to that, and not everybody's like you, but at the same time, I never felt seen in the classroom because you had different thoughts or different experiences that just didn't seem to fit in, not just because it was a different geographical location, Kansas City versus Texas, but also because they didn't reflect my experience growing up and being bilingual, bicultural kind of person. And so that was really difficult. Like I said, I remember having that one Latina teacher, which was our photography teacher, loved the class. And even going to my first year, I went to KCC, and that's the first time I took like a Latino focus class. It was Latino, I'll never forget, it was Latino literature class. But my professor was a white professor. So even then it was great because I was getting this cultural experience and reading this stuff that I would have never read had it not been for that. But at the same time, there was still not that connection, not that really deep connection. And it wasn't until I got up to KU and started taking a lot more classes because of my degree in Latin American studies, where I did have Latino teachers and Latino teachers from all over the place. Some that were Chicanos, some that were, from Mexico. And that was mind blowing. That just takes it to a whole nother level because it makes it real, makes you more invested in the conversations that you have are richer. And so it just makes it a lot more.
Yes. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about the demographics in Wyandotte County, Kansas. Sure. For those of you who don't know where Wyandotte County is and where El Centro is physically located, but of course your reach and your services are, reach out a broader community. But tell us a little bit about the representation in Wyandotte County and how does that look like? Paint the picture for us, please.
Definitely. I think that one of the beautiful uniqueness of Wyandotte County is that it really is a county that does not have a true majority. We like to sometimes describe it as a third between African American, Latino, and white. But we also have a lot of immigrants and all kinds of different immigrants in Wyandotte County. We're located right downtown, like literally downtown across from the bus depot. So there's a lot of great diversity. El Centro, our primary target population and who we mostly work with historically, because we're 45 years old, so we've been at this for a really long time, is primarily new to long-term immigrants, primarily Mexican from the Mexican culture, but we really do see anybody that walks into our door. And we have seen a shift, I'll say. We've seen a shift within the last few years where we started getting a lot more Latino immigrants coming in from different, not just from Mexico anymore, like before. But that is our primary target. Some of our families have been here for a long time, like me. They've been here for decades, but they still might not feel 100% integrated into communities that they live in. And so that's kind of our focus, is to make sure that we're providing access to services, reducing barriers for services to that population. And then we also have a location in Johnson County in Olathe, which Johnson County is huge. It's a huge county. It's a very affluent county. And although Latinos are they're a minority over there, they actually have the same amount of Latinos per population as Wyandotte County. It's just that they're so much bigger and spread out that it doesn't feel like there's the same amount. But
yes,
definitely.
so there's a shift there also, right, in
Oh
Johnson
yeah.
County. I was fortunate enough to attend the celebration of the opening of your location in Johnson County
Hmm.
in Olathe, and it was a beautiful celebration. It was, you have a beautiful center there too.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember, we're moving into the advocacy realm of what you guys do, but I remember seeing mobilizers being part of your staff.
Hmm.
You know, tell us a little bit about the advocacy work that you guys do,
Yeah.
and if you can lead us into your involvement, individual, your staff, but also El Centro in legislative advocacy. I know you guys were involved in the Safe and Welcoming Wyandotte Act. If you can talk to us about that experience and your efforts there.
Oh yeah, definitely. So El Centro has a long history with advocacy. It might have changed and looked different throughout the years. I remember when I first joined El Centro staff, we had a powerhouse. A lot of people know her, and her name will not be a mystery to many. Melinda Lewis was working with us, and at the time we were working with families, and it was families that we did busloads and went to Topeka, and we were able to get the Dream Act passed way back when. And so this is just something that we've always done, to work with our families, and really it's their stories, it's their struggle, it's their voices. We're the privileged ones because we're able to amplify their stories and their voices. So it's not about us, it's about them.
Mhm.
That's how we've always seen ourselves. And we do have an amazing group of volunteer promotoras and mobilizers. They're the ones that are the boots in the ground. They're the ones in the community talking to the community about what's happening, whether it's tenants' rights or Medicaid expansion. And of course, yes, safe and welcoming, which was something that we did from the very, very beginning. First meeting ever was held here at our offices in Kansas City, Kansas, for safe and welcoming over 5 years ago. This is something that we fought for, along with wonderful partners that did just amazing work with the community, talking to people, engaging with people, to really have them feel supported by organizations that we have the privilege to be able to kind of put ourselves in the front line a lot of times when our staff, when our clients or our community doesn't feel safe enough to do that yet.
Yeah.
But really, it's at the end of the day, it's about them, and it's about being fluid enough to adapt into the needs that arise. Because something might be important this year, or we might feel like, oh, this is really important, we're going to fight for this. But then they're worried about what they're worried about. And we need to be able to take a cue from them and shift ourselves to maybe not being ego driven, but being driven by the community needs and what it is that they want.
Se me pone chinita la piel de gallina when I hear you say these things, because that is exactly what true advocacy is. Like, you're actually listening, you're hosting probably like active listening sessions with a community, hearing those stories, the fears that involve, that surround those stories as well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for sharing. In this whole in the processes of advocacy, of activating the community to fight for rights, to fight for justice, to elevate their stories and their voices to count, as to move those needles. What have been some of the challenges, the barriers? Where do you see our community be either misunderstood or
Mm-hmm.
discounted? Like, tell us a little bit about what you've experienced and seen along, throughout the years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, this is where it just gets really difficult, because we know that the population we work for, and I say we work for because we work for them, we have to acknowledge that they have barriers and circumstances that we sometimes can't understand 100%. And so we have to be very sensitive to that. We have to make sure that their safety and protection is always our number one priority. So there's a lot of things that we have to take into consideration in that sense. Some of the other things is that a lot of people feel that just because somebody can't vote, like your typical, they're not your voter, so what do I care how they're feeling? And so what we always say is we try to tell our community that even whether you can vote or not, because that's irrelevant to us, whether you are a voter or not, that doesn't mean that your voice and your story doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to engage with them regardless of where your status is or whatever. Like, you still should be engaged in what's happening in your communities, understand what's happening in your communities, whether you're a voter or not, and then understand that your presence is power. So just showing up to those hearings or writing testimony, those things kind of matter. And so we're here to kind of make sure that those things are happening, that we're able to give them that platform so they elevate their own voices, at the same time making sure that they're feeling protected and safe.
Yes, I just wrote down your quote, "Your presence is power." I think there should be a t-shirt with that. I'm gonna make some t-shirts like that and then put your name down there, credit you. That was a powerful statement. Who has been part of your support system personally, individually, as you've done this work, which of course is impressive work, rewarding work, but it does come with its sacrifices. It does have its emotional toll. So tell us about your support system. Who has been there for you?
For me or for El Centro? Because I mean, I guess it could be both. I think for El Centro, we have had a lot of wonderful allies. I'll have to give it to a lot of our funding partners over the years. We have seen a shift. I think there's a ground movement, a ground swelling, where all of them understand this importance of advocacy and not just believing the message, but supporting the message financially, which is just as important as by saying we support you. It's also to financially support us so that we can have that access. Honestly, it's the community. It's those volunteers, our promotoras and our mobilizers who sign up to do this work. It's not a paid position. These are women that are natural leaders in the community, and they want to do the work. And then the people that run the programs. We've had some amazing mobilizers that have come through our doors. Some of them you know personally, I'm sure, through our history, that we had some wonderful people that have come and given their time and talents to us and then moved on to greater, bigger, better things. But they've still left their mark with us. And I think that's really important. I think starting everywhere from Melinda Lewis, who still continues to be a great support for us. And then we have people like Jocelyn Todd, we have Valeria Espadas, we have Alde, who's now working with the governor. Like they've worked at El Centro before. They've all had a little piece of it as they come through. And I think that's been really great. Personally, I gotta say, I'm really lucky that I have a great leader here at El Centro that supports the work that we're doing, doesn't tell us what we need to do or not do, and just listens to what we say the community needs and says, I support you, go for it, do it. And sometimes that's all you need, somebody just that's gonna have your back in case things go sour, as they say. And so that's been really great and supportive, but really, I think funders understanding the importance of the work that we're doing for the population that we're doing it and still finding the benefit in that, I think, has been really, really great for us. And we have great partners at the UG, at the government area, that are supporters, some not so much, because, at the end of the day, El Centro is known for serving a certain population that not everybody feels needs to be served. But at the same time, we're here to say they do. And we're just going to continue to do it.
Yes.
For another 45 more years. So
I love your recognition of the boots on the ground people. What do their roles look like? The promotoras de salud and then the mobilizers. Like, what is their day to day?
Oh yeah. So right now we have an incredible director, Elizabeth Reynoso. She's our director of community education and outreach, and really she oversees two of our big major programs, which is our promotoras de salud and also our community mobilizers. Eli has been with us for 11, almost 12 years, and Eli started as a promotora. She was a promotora. She's been with us since basically the beginning of the promotora program, and she is a powerhouse. I mean, she can do it all because she's a great motivator. She's good. She's great at talking to these ladies, empowering them, motivating them, making them believe in the leadership that they already have within them, and just training them a little bit in different areas that they need to go back out there and kind of do the great work that they do. And she's really lucky because then she's able to work with a really great group of promotoras that she helps train. The average promotora and mobilizer stays with us for over 2 years. So that's a big commitment. She's trained over 300 over the last 13 years that she's been with us. Last count, she goes to other places. So she's been doing some trainings out at Garden City with Janice's Family Health. And they have a great group of like 16 promotoras. And so that's really her passion. She's just really good at that popular education. I think it's the model that she really is trained and an expert in. And she has just really done amazing work with that program. She understands the importance of media, of storytelling, of social media. And so that's all of those components together have really helped solidify who we are, what we're doing right now.
I love knowing and hearing also from you that there's sort of like a natural pipeline, right? That happens, like people like yourself, right? You start at doing certain work, and then you start growing and developing and having more opportunities and obviously much more impact. And then you just start progressing and growing within your organization. And that is very powerful. And also the fact that you have within your organization and your programs and your development, you have also, like you mentioned, Valeria and Diosene, that then take this beautiful experience, rich and powerful experience, and then apply it elsewhere, right? Take it to different communities, apply it to different focus and lenses. That is very powerful. What do promotoras de salud do? Like, what do they bring resources to the community? What is it that they do?
It's a variety of different things. So depending on what their specialty is, so we allow them to decide which area interests me, because we have different focus areas. So they can decide to become a Medicaid ambassador, and a Medicaid ambassador will learn, I mean, they literally know everything about Medicaid that you need to know, and they go out in the community and they provide education. Did you know? These are all the wonderful benefits for Medicaid. These are the qualifiers. You might qualify. Your children might qualify. Would you like to apply? And then they kind of do that whole gamut of things. So they do a lot of community outreach and education. Same thing with Know Your Rights. They're first trained themselves, and then they actually lead those classes in the community, whether they're community forums in person or virtual. The same can be said for the work that they do around Comprando Rico y Sano. It's a curriculum that we use through our affiliate Unidos US. And it's like they do everything from cooking demos to creating a budget for providing a meal for a week on low income, but it's a healthy, good kind of meals. So, and they can do cooking classes. So it really depends on what their passion is. Like right now during the summer, we're doing a lot of work around the elections. Knowing what the deadlines are, register to vote, ask for your early advance ballot, vote early if you can. And so every Wednesday for the summer, they're outside, I want to say, Mi Pueblito here, and then also Grocery Journal Letha. On the weekends, they're at Mi Placita. So they do they're out there in the community constantly. And the great thing about that is that they're so comfortable with the knowledge that they've gained that they might have a table that, let's say it's about Medicaid. But they just start talking to people, and they might start talking about COVID because they've also been trained on understanding about vaccines and boosters. They'll have a conversation about anything that the community has a question about or need about. They just kind of go with it because they feel that comfortable talking about multiple subjects. But I would say their primary roles are about outreach, engagement, and education with a community, but in a way that doesn't feel like I'm not judging you. I'm not trying to force ideas down your throat. This is my experience. This is what I learned. Now, if I can help you a little bit, great. And then if you want to share with your neighbors, even better, things like that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up voter engagement. Can you share a little bit about what that have you seen that evolve, like that voter apathy sort of like kind of quiet down, and with the powerful work that all of your staff and that you're doing, how have you seen shifts? Have you seen much more engagement from the Latino community?
That's always the issue, because that's just always what's heartbreaking when you see the election results and you see how small of a population of Latinos are actually voting. And that's what we're trying to engage with them. Like, your voice does matter, your vote does matter. And again, even if we're talking to somebody that maybe they can't vote themselves, but talk to your children, talk to your neighbors, talk to your, comadres, whoever can vote, about voting. And we have seen a change. We've noticed a big difference, especially when the promotoras get that kind of information and that knowledge that they're able to pass on. Really makes a big difference, because especially for somebody that's never voted before, I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do? What are they going to ask for? Am I going to get in trouble? Nobody wants to do anything that might be bad or might be considered as bad. We do naturalization clinics, and we call them future voter clinics, because the point is that you will become a future voter. So I know. So
it's all in the name, right? Like, it's all
and I said, it totally makes sense. Why is it a naturalization clinic? It's about a future voter clinic. It's about doing what you need to do to become a U.S. citizen so that you can vote, and having that knowledge of understanding your power in your vote and things like that. And so that when you do become a U.S. citizen, you're ready to go. I'm going to go register. I know what I need to do. It doesn't sound scary anymore. And having that kind of information that becomes your armor, what you're doing. And so we really try to focus on that, and just providing a lot, like saturating don't forget the dates. It's important to vote, because, as long as they feel like they do have a piece, they do make a piece of the puzzle, they their vote matters, then we're hoping that we can do a little bit of.
Can you share with me your experience?
Mhm.
What did it feel like? Where were you? What happened the first time you voted?
Okay, yes, I can do that because I'm like a hardcore voter, as people would say. Like I look at my thing in my voter to voter profile, and I'm like, I never missed a local election, primary or general. I can see it on my thing.
Wow.
But that came, and I can tell you where that came from. It came from my stepfather. My mother remarried, and that's how we ended up in Kansas City. He's a retired Navy. He was a retired Navy man. He was Latino, but he was, as you can imagine, he was an older gentleman. He was very serious person when it came to your civic engagement. I turned 18 years old, and the next day he said, "Let's go." And he was a man of few words, so he didn't really tell me what we were doing. He said, "Let's go," and I said, "Okay, we're going." And we went to register me to vote. And then
Wow.
that first election that was ready, and he's like, "All right, he told me and my mom, let's go vote." And so we went, and that's how it happened. It was not a question. It was not a, do you want to? It was just
Yeah.
done. And so but it did. That created a pattern for me of understanding the importance of voting and then informing myself. But it was amazing. It was the way it's always been in my family, has been that way. And I understand that that's not everybody's experience, but it shows how it makes a difference. So that's why we're talking to those moms of young children, so that they become empowered and understand the importance of it, so that when their children turn 18, they'll do the same.
Yes. I love that. I love that it came from within your family.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that civic duty was like instilled in you, like as a responsibility that you have as a constituent,
Mhm.
as a person that has the status to vote. That is beautiful, and the work you're doing with regards to that civic engagement, the political engagement, very, very important. What is your advice to those who say, "Well, every time I vote, I don't, nothing really happens. I don't see the change or the result that I'm hoping for." What's your advice for those people?
And it's a very, because I feel it sometimes, especially, I'm not gonna lie, especially lately,
Yeah,
these last few years, it's been really tough. And so it is hard to say, like, your vote matters. I mean, like something like safe and welcoming. I mean, that can be
yeah,
heartbreaking because it's like
yes,
you do the work, you put in the hours, you put in the time, you get to where you think you success, and then we celebrate for 3 weeks later to be completely heartbroken. So I totally get it, but at the same time, that's what they want. That's what I always tell myself. So it gets me more angry. That's what they want. They want to break you down and discourage you enough so you don't use your voice and you don't
hmm,
vote, because that's the end goal, right? So
yeah,
why are you going to give them what they want?
yeah.
So that's what I always say.
It's
It
about
might take a while.
persisting.
It's about persistence.
It's
It might
about
take a while,
persisting.
but I'd rather have my vote and then be heartbroken than not have even tried.
Yeah, and know that you did your part, right? That you contributed, whether it was the result you wanted or not, but you were responsible and you did what you had to do
Right.
in order to at least push for change.
Mhm.
That's really awesome. Tell us, what are you most proud of personally, accomplishments wise? And then speaking on behalf of El Centro.
Personally, I think, going back for my master's, because I really didn't think it was possible. Like financially, it just seems so scary, to be
Yeah,
honest. And also, grad school, and I'm really honest, like I barely made it through undergrad.
yeah,
Um, and obviously it has no determination on my professional success since then, but things like that can affect your self-esteem as a student. And so I was really worried about that, but I went, and it just turned out that a few years of working in the real world, I guess, makes a big difference. And so I think that's probably one of my proudest personal moments, being able to go into, I was accepted into the executive MPA program at UMKC, which was a really great experience. It was with the cohorts. It was, a certain group of us that started, and you kind of support yourself. And it's kind of like one of those things where once you're in, you're in. You got to,
yeah.
it's every session, fall, spring, and then summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, and you're done. And so there was no messing around. We had to get it done. But it was so great that I was able to do that, plus work full time as a newly CPO, and was able to accomplish that, and it was a great experience.
This is my second to last question. And this question, I will be very, very honest. When people ask me this question,
Mhm,
sometimes I feel like I'm being attacked, and sometimes I feel like they actually care.
mhm.
Um, but how do you take care of yourself?
Oh, I love this question.
The self-care question.
I love the self-care question because I do think it's very important.
Yes.
It's very important. You cannot do work with community for 20 years without it starting to affect, emotionally. Like there's some tough stuff that you hear all the time. And I tell this to staff all the time. Well, first of all, you need to understand your own boundaries. And there has to be boundaries. Just because you want to help and be of service, you can't be of service to anybody if you have completely no boundaries. And so now your life becomes this. It can't. So for me, self-care is about having that time with my friends and family. I'm a social person. I like to hang out and talk and do those kind of things. I think that's really important. But a few years back, I decided that, you know what, I need my time and my things that are going to be a priority, and I'm going to make a priority for them. Pre-pandemic, it was, okay, this is super bougie. Pre-pandemic, it was my facials. I had to have, at first I would go only on my birthday. I would treat myself on my, Then I started asking myself, why am I waiting for once a year to take an hour for a facial? And so I started doing them every quarter, and then I started doing them every month. And then of course the pandemic hit and there was no more facials. So I just started doing that routine on Sundays, and I just really love it. Just doing my, I'll do a hair mask and the full face thing as I'm cleaning the house. And I really enjoy just having that time of really taking that moment for myself. It really has been amazing to me. It gets me powered up for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
I do it every Sunday. You have to take that time. No matter what happens, you can always take some time for just you to do exactly what you want and not feel guilty about it.
That's it, right? The little guilt trickles in. That's awesome. Well, the last question is, feel like to receive an Impacto Award, and why do you think it's important to recognize each other's power? Because we shared, right? Why are we recognizing those activists, those advocates, those people that are, doing the boots on the ground work for our community? And to me, I will share that, with really putting these awards out there was also to build a broader base of community so that we all get to hear about what we're doing. Because a lot of times we're so focused in the work we're doing, we don't see what's happening around us.
Right.
So tell us what it felt like to receive the award and why you think it's important to recognize each other's work, influence, and power as Latinos doing this community work every day.
Right. Well, first it was a big surprise. I didn't, when I got that email, I didn't even know what was up. It was a big surprise. And then I found out that it was Irene, my boss, Irene, nominated. That was really touching. And I was really touched by the words that she said. So that was really nice. But more than that, the award, the recognition for 20 years, it's nice and it feels really great. I'll say that going to the event and being around a group of so many Latinos and having this, it's one thing to get recognized. It's always nice, no dogging anything else. It's always nice to be recognized. But something about being recognized by something so Latino was even better. Being at the event, surrounded by, brown faces of all different shades, it just was a really amazing experience.
Wonderful. Well, Erika, thank you very much for spending this time with us on our RevvED episodes. It's been great getting to know you a little bit better, and I would love to get to know you a little bit more. and some influence as far as the masks and the facials. I definitely need to work more on my self-care. But it's been great getting to know you. If people are interested in finding more about the work you do, about what Centro does for the community, where can they find that information?
They can go to our website, www.elcentroinc.com.org, or they can give us, I would say follow us on Facebook. Find us on Facebook. I mean, we are very, very active on social media, and you will know everything we're up to there. And then you'll get to meet all of our wonderful team as they're on their live quite a bit.
Perfecto. Pues muchas felicidades. Muchas gracias. I hope you have a beautiful holiday weekend. And that you get to spend that quality time with your people, with that support system that you have, and also a little bit of self-care there, because we know that's important. Muchas gracias. Gracias, Erika, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you. Gracias, familias, and we'll see you next time.